I think it's fair to say that in some senses we have been slightly overtaken by events. The general election changed things. We're at the start, not the end of a process, and that means that the watering down of some of the Smith proposals by the draft clauses means they do have to be revisited. Gordon Brown, of course, famously guaranteed that if Scotland voted no, then we're going to be within a year or two as close to a federal state as you can be in a country where one nation is 85% of the population. And if some think that the draft clauses deliver on that promise, then what about the promise made by the Prime Minister, David Cameron, on Monday, the 18th of May, in the House of Commons, when he said, "I hope and believe that we can bring the countries of our United Kingdom together, implementing the devolution agreed for Wales and Northern Ireland, creating in Scotland the strongest devolved government anywhere in the world." Let me repeat that promise made by the Prime Minister this week. We will create in Scotland the strongest devolved government anywhere in the world. Not only do the draft clauses not come anywhere near meeting that promise, but the Smith Commission proposals fall short of it as well. However, that is the test that the Prime Minister wishes us to judge his government's proposals by. The Devolution Committee asked Spice to provide an analysis of the amount of fiscal decentralisation in the UK compared to other OECD countries. The UK was almost at the very bottom of that graph. Belgium, Norway, Australia, Italy, Germany, Finland, Spain, the USA, Sweden, Switzerland and Canada all scored much higher on both subnational government tax revenue as a percentage of total tax revenue and subnational government expenditure as a percentage of public expenditure. The amount of fiscal decentralisation to Scotland has been overplayed. Few financial powers have thus far been decentralised. The Smith proposals take us a little further, while the recommendations on devolving benefits does not take us very far forward at all. If the Prime Minister really means to make Scotland the strongest devolved government anywhere in the world, as he has promised, then his government's draft clauses are unrecognisable as the means to make this a reality. The Smith Commission did not recommend extensive powers for the Scottish Parliament on welfare, despite the pre-referendum promises, guarantees and vows. It listed some benefits to be devolved, but the vast bulk of welfare benefits were to remain reserved. However, the Smith report does state that the Scottish Parliament will have new powers to create new benefits in areas of devolved responsibility. Unfortunately, the draft clauses propose that the powers of the Scottish Parliament will apply as long as they specifically relate to areas of welfare responsibility that are devolved. Now, it doesn't sound necessarily a big difference, but this is a substantial difference and in no way meets either the spirit or the substance of the Smith recommendations. As Professor Spicker of Robert Gordon University mentioned in his submission to our committee, Schedule 5F of the Scotland Act 1998 implied a presumption that all benefits would be reserved unless explicit provision is made to the contrary. The draft clauses on further powers operate, and I'd like to quote Professor Spicker here, operate almost wholly by adding further exceptions. He also said that the clauses in the White Paper are not faithful to the recommendations of the Smith Commission. The key differences are the absence of the power to create new benefits and the restrictions placed on the categories of people to whom benefits refer. This restriction will have real consequences for the people of Scotland. It's not an abstract concept, particularly for our most vulnerable citizens. And unless the UK Government makes substantial changes in this area, they will have failed in their promise to meet the Smith recommendations in full. One final point, Presiding Officer, on the power to create new or top-up benefits is a crucial one, that any additional income created by such new benefits introduced by the Scottish Parliament must provide additional income for recipients and not be offset by reductions in entitlements to benefits, tax credits or tax relief provided by the UK Government. That is the unanimous view of the committee, and the UK Government must rise to that challenge. Even the specific benefits that Smith proposed to be devolved have been restricted in the draft clauses. To give just two examples, it was recommended that benefits for carers be devolved, but the White Paper only proposes devolving benefits for unemployed carers. And while Smith recommended devolving industrial injuries disablement benefit, the White Paper proposes devolving industrial injuries disablement benefit, excluding prescribed industrial diseases. Now, I think this is important, and I'd like to quote from a research paper published by the Alliance for Cancer Prevention entitled Asbestos in Scotland as to why I think it is important. In the last quarter of the 20th century, the Government's official statistics recorded rates of mesothelioma in Scotland running at 31% higher than the UK average, while in the Clydeside region rates were almost double, and in Glasgow the rates were 2.5 times higher than the UK average. A particular hotspot was the town of Clydebank, several miles west of Glasgow, which officially recorded the highest rate of mesothelioma mortality in the whole of the United Kingdom. Yet apparently the Scottish Parliament cannot be trusted to deal with providing industrial injuries disablement benefit to the victims of asbestos. Given the failings of the draft clauses on welfare, I have to question and I have to ask Labour members this. If SNP MPs lodge amendments to the bill on devolving welfare powers, will Labour MPs support those amendments, or will they vote to keep welfare in the hands of a majority Tory government? I think that's an important question. It's not, I think, an attempt to directly attack our colleagues on the Labour benches, but it's an extremely important question that the members of the public in this country need to know the answer to. Presiding Officer, the general election reset the bar. The Scottish National Party received an overwhelming mandate from the people of Scotland. The Prime Minister has promised to make Scotland the strongest devolved parliament in the world. Therefore, the question for all of us here today is simple. Will we stand together and demand that the promise is honoured, or will some parties accept an offer that fails both in spirit and in substance to even meet the recommendations of the Smith Commission?
Thank you so much.